Hello, everybody. Facebook Live Friday. Brian, Milam, Dave Baker, and you can tell it is now October. The weather is starting to change a little bit. The colors are changing. It is opening weekend of the fall meet at Keeneland.
Yes, sir.
It is one of the most special times of the year in Central Kentucky. It is a lot of fun right now.
And just think, next week basketball gets going with
Is October
Big Blue
the
Madness.
most wonderful time of the year?
Yes, it is.
Especially when the Cats, the football Wildcats, especially when they're 5-0, taking on the number one ranked 5-0 Georgia Bulldogs, two-time defending national champion.
They're pretty good.
I've heard they are.
They're pretty good.
Especially between those hedges, down there.
Silver britches.
I love the silver britches. That's great. I have thought about it. You've thought about it. You've been asked about it. I've been asked about it. Can the Wildcats do what few think are possible?
I don't know. Let's talk about the hedges first. How many times has Kentucky actually won down there?
Well, the last time was 2009.
Georgia has.
Rich Brooks was in the house.
Georgia has not lost at home since 2019.
Correct.
If you go all the way back, I believe it was under Fran Kersey. That one time Kentucky won down there. I believe they won down there when then Prince Charles was visiting Athens.
When Prince Charles was just a man.
Was just a prince. When King Charles was just a prince. But I think that so it hadn't happened often. And then of course, you know, those hedges are historic. But they actually took the hedges out once.
Yes, they did.
When they played Olympic soccer down there in 1996, when the former Bulldog Billy Payne, who played for Vince Dooley, was the head of the United States Olympic Committee. So there you go.
The things you learn on this show, you will not learn, I promise you, anywhere else. Kentucky trails Georgia all-time 62, 12, and 2.
12 times.
In Athens, the Cats are 31, 4, and 2.
4 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
So only 4 times. And let's see, what was the... 62-12. Gosh, that's not a good number. They've knocked down some historic numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Reference
Florida.
When you see some of the numbers, and I find this funny.
Yes.
When you look at 62, 12, and 4. But then on the flip side for basketball, 176 and 32.
Right,
you know, it's Kentucky, and historically Kentucky's football record against the heavyweights, obviously it's sub 500. But then when you look at the basketball, it's just
I'm going to tell you something. I think I told you earlier. I don't want to mention it, but a well-known former SEC head coach that I talked to the other day said for the first time that Kentucky can match up with Georgia on the defensive and offensive lines.
Especially defense, I think.
When you
offense still has got a few things.
Our dude Dion.
D1?
Love that kid. We need to break that tape out again where he came in here and co-hosted that day on Everyday Kentucky. But a great kid. So Ray Davis, too. But, I mean, they've got guys.
Yeah.
They're recruiting a Georgia kind of guy. They're not only recruiting them, but they're getting them now. And I've always said this about this staff. I believe one of the biggest areas that they have not gotten enough public credit for is the way they develop talent. Now, I think they've done a great job of identifying talent very young.
Correct.
Continuing to recruit those guys. And once they got on everybody else's recruiting radar, keeping them here and not letting them go someplace else. But they've really done a nice job, as they say in ball, of coaching them up. And I think that's what we're going to find out this weekend. So I think on the line, they can play with them. I think at running back, they can play with them. I think there's got to be work done with receivers,
no question,
and quarterback,
no question.
But I don't know if I should. I think this game is also going to come down to the 2 quarterbacks. Whichever one of those guys give the ball up the fewest times, I think that's going to decide the game. Devin Leary came in last year, and their first game of the season was in Raleigh against East Carolina, I think it was, and he threw 4 interceptions. And they barely won the game. And listen, the receiver's got to catch the ball. But if you look at Devin Leary, does he ever throw the ball the same way 2 times?
No.
I mean, he's not coming over the top. He's coming sidearm. He's coming submarine. He's throwing off the left foot. He's throwing off the right foot. I mean, it's kind of, again, I don't want to take anything away from these receivers, but these receivers can catch. I don't know what's in their head. I think he is just, there are some times when he's touch passing, and he needs to fire it in there. And there's sometimes when he's fired in there, like he's the human jugs machine or something. I don't know who could catch it unless you just catch it in your chest, and you become concave.
He is, what you talk about his mechanics. He is, for me, and I'm a baseball guy, many of you know that, he's like David Cone. He may come here, or a Louis Tiant who's going to give you, who knows where he's going to come from.
The big leg kick.
They come from all different angles. I love, one of my favorite passes is what we have seen a couple of times to Ray Davis, is when he drops down Bernie Kosar, only Bernie with heat, on the screen pass, because here comes a lineman, and instead of throwing it here, getting it batted down, they'll come underneath. And
the problem is these linemen that he's going to be doing this against tomorrow.
They're octopus. Actually, they've got 8 arms and they go all over.
You and I were down on the field last year. You're there all the time.
Coldest UK game I've been to.
But I was on the field with Brian last year for the Kentucky-Georgia game here. Now it was in November, and I'm telling you, 41 years, the coldest I've ever been. But it's almost sometimes like watching golf on television. You can't do the undulation and the difficulty of the course and the greens justice. Same way with hockey on TV. You just don't get the speed of it or whatever. You don't get how big these guys are at Georgia until you get down, and then you walk out and you're like, oh my God, oh my God. And it's like every one of them that come out like that, except for the quarterback.
1999 was when I first got into sports. I was at news from 1998 to 99 when I worked in Eastern Kentucky. One thing I used to love to do was get to a UK game early. You knew what the UK guys looked like. You'd see them all the time. I would go to
the other guy.
I would go to the other entrance.
Yes.
And for the UK players that would come out, you would basically do this. Oh, yeah, they're kind of tall. They're kind of big. When Georgia, when LSU, oh wow, they're really big. I mean,
really,
you got a crick in your neck. You looked up so much. These guys, I even mentioned it once. I said the Commonwealth Stadium, now Kroger Field, that end of the field was cooler by 10 degrees because they blocked out the sun.
Oh, there's no question.
They're enormous. And even Florida had a guy, number 21. For those of you, I don't know his name. I was just behind him on the bench when I was walking from sideline to sideline. The largest football mammal I have seen.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, he was bigger than, he was twice the size of Deion Walker. He got in on a few plays. I thought, that's the largest human being I've seen in Kroger Field.
Do you know how difficult that is to be twice the size of Deion Walker?
It was like Yokozuna coming out to play for Florida. He was that big. Rikishi, he was that large.
Ben, what is that quarterback's name at Georgia again?
Carson Beck.
Carson Beck. So I've talked about Leary. But if Kentucky can get in a situation where they get Georgia behind the sticks and they have to go to Carson Beck, Hairston's eyes get this big. Because Carson Beck is going to throw it to somebody. And there's a lot of times he doesn't care whether he's throwing it to his own guys or the other guys. He's going to throw it to somebody.
You say he's not Eric Zier.
He ain't going to throw it out of bounds. Buck Bellew ain't walking through that door.
The UK defense has been so consistent.
Haven't they, though?
Yes, they have played the first couple of weeks. You have those confidence games. You build up, you see what you can do. But obviously what UK did to Florida last week in terms of shutting down the run game, they gave up a touchdown late. The game was, for all intents and purposes, was over.
It absolutely was.
And, okay, a little blown coverage over here. Yeah, but for, 60 minutes of the game, let's say UK's on the field defense, 35 minutes, let's just say that, they dominated 32, 33 minutes of that game.
How has Brad White not won that Broyles Award as the assistant coach of the year?
Man, that guy is so good.
He is so underrated. And he doesn't have a bit of ego about him.
I love Brad
He's kind of
White.
like you and I a little bit, I think. I think he's got just a little bit of redneck. You know what I'm saying?
Just enough.
He was talking this week about the fact that if you got kicked, you need to, if you're a competitor, you need to have it in him. And he's like you and I. I mean, we've probably got a little quicker trigger than he does, but I mean.
Yeah, in the younger days, certainly.
At times, you got to drop the bat and you got to go, right? Yeah. And I mean, I love his attitude. I love the way he challenges his players. I love the way he teaches them, but I also love the way he stands up for them. Yeah. And I mean, you hear people that I don't think he fishes. I think that dude is all about ball. Yeah. And I mean, is a perfect fit for this staff. And I believe that I hope not, but I'm telling you, I promise you that every year there are people that want to talk to him, and because he is just that good.
You know, you mentioned earlier about this staff may not get the credit it deserves for coaching them up. And And Kentucky has had, like any school has had, 4- and 5-star players.
Sure.
But Josh Allen will always be that guy, a 2-star guy.
Right,
Who is
right,
he?
right,
No
right,
one
right.
was recruiting him.
Right.
1AA teams, at best, in the Northeast were recruiting him. Nobody had Josh Allen on their sheet.
Right.
Somebody at UK said, got good size, pretty good speed.
No.
We see a higher ceiling for him. And obviously, a few years ago, Josh Allen just wiped out every award he could
Sure.
win. And I see some of that in Trevin Wallace. Who's this guy? Again,
Right.
people get into recruiting, but let's be honest. After a couple of minutes you read something, you have forgotten most every recruit that any school looks at, unless they are from your hometown.
Sure. Right.
And this guy's like, he's from Jessup, Georgia. Georgia's got a lot of good players. He is the fastest son of a gun they got out there. And then you team him up with De'Aaron Jackson.
Right.
What those two have been able to do, I mean, it is a terrible twosome right there in the middle. The quarterback has got to look at every time. And J.J. Weaver gets a lot of the pub. Oxendine, a lot of the pub early on. But these two have emerged from the shadow. De'Aaron Jackson led UK in tackles last year.
Right.
If you had given me 5 guesses last year, if you had asked me yesterday,
he would not have been on your immaculate tackle
I would have got him.
He would not have been on the immaculate tackle.
It's amazing to see the sum of the parts out equal the whole when it comes to Kentucky.
Here's the
football.
other thing, and I think Nick Saban has been dealing with this for a long time, and Kirby Smart knows that. And Kirby is probably, in my mind, as close to Saban as any of his former assistants. But Nick has always had to deal with a lot of staff turnover.
Right.
Not only players going pro, but a lot of staff turnover. And this is really the first time that Kirby has had to deal with it. So you had Todd Monken, who was the offensive coordinator. He went to the NFL. And during that period of time, he had brought back Mike Bobo, a former Georgia quarterback,
number 14.
to be their offensive coordinator. Bobo was like one of the last offensive coordinators under Mark Richt. Then he was the head coach at Colorado State, got fired out there. So, I mean, Bobo's been back about a month or so, and then Monken goes to the NFL. So he becomes the coordinator. All those guys are really tight down there now, too. So Will Muschamp is the defensive coordinator. His son is playing down there. I think I've told you before, and I was talking to this NFL coach the other day. I got to know Will when he was a graduate assistant for Roy Kidd at EKU, and he was doing the scout team and lining the practice field afterwards and everything, and he was always just so complimentary, even after he became a head coach, to Coach Kidd and everything he meant to him. But so he's now the co-defensive coordinator. So when you got co-coordinators, and you got a head coach like Kirby Smart, who is as involved in the defense as Mark Stoops is, being an old defensive back and a coordinator. I mean, there's just a lot of cooks in the kitchen right now. And I think they're managing it okay on defense. I don't think they've figured it out much like Kentucky on offense just yet.
Yeah, and they have, we are here now week 5 of the season. And I do believe, and I think if you polled every UK fan, 98% would say, where would this offense be if not for Ray Davis?
Right.
Again, another guy who, in terms of publicity, in terms of acknowledgement, was buried at Vandy. Mm-hmm. He comes here, and all of a sudden, he's the National Running Back of the Week by the Walter Camp Award or Doak Walker Award, and he's this and he's that. Again, UK is finding these jewels, these hidden gems around the country through the portal, certainly from recruiting, whatnot. Kentucky has a very good team. Now, and this is not a slight at all, because the next pass that you and I do in college football will be our first. Mm-hmm. But Devin Leary was the most high-profiled quarterback in the portal. He's not lived up to some of those expectations set forth by other people. But then there's Ray Davis, and people are like, oh, he played at Vandy. Ray Davis is the best running back we've had since Sonny Collins. You hear some of this ridiculous stuff.
Right.
But he had one of the top 3 days in UK football history as a running back. He's up there with Mo, and Lynn Bowden was a hybrid, but still, he did unbelievable work. And this is why I do not get so involved in recruiting rankings sometimes and the hype and this. It's like Don Trail. He's one of our sales account executives upstairs. We were talking about the WAR stat, wins above replacement. That's a guess for the most part. It's not a batting average, a home run total, an RBI total. It is subjective in a lot of ways, in my opinion. Well, so are rankings. Ray Davis is one heck of a young man, first off, and he's a great running back. But some of the other people that we have seen over the years are a high-profile player. They don't cut it.
Here's what I would say to you, B. And I'm not banging on fans here, but they only know what they know, right?
That's right. They only critique the result,
but they
not the process.
You know, they look at what Devin Leary's stats were. Okay, let's look at Leary and Ray Davis. I mean, they saw Ray Davis run all over Kentucky in a Vanderbilt uniform. Yeah. Devin Leary didn't play the second half of the season.
Right.
Okay, and we didn't get to see him in the preseason.
Correct.
And, you know, I just, you know, there have been times when people have come in here. People were convinced when Billy Gillispie came in here
the savior,
that he was the answer.
Yeah, the savior.
Didn't know anything but ball and
Dr. Pepper and peanut butter peanut butter crackers in the fridge.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
a few other beverages.
It wasn't based on anything they had seen in person.
Yeah.
Wasn't based on any
It was. Beating Louisville in Rupp Arena.
One game sample.
That was it.
But I mean, nothing else. Nothing else.
Yeah, that's right.
And I mean, the way he was able to recruit out at A&M and those other places were like, okay, hey, this is last chance you right here. You don't make it here, you ain't going anywhere else. So if you want to have a chance, you got to put up with me.
The Ellis Island.
And so they did, and they didn't have to do that here. But I mean, so I understand it. But I mean, Leary has not, you know, you come here and the first thing you look at, and we knew this when you look at size, but I don't believe in heights and weights and all this. I mean, dude is short.
Can you win?
Dude is short. Dude cannot see. This will be a real key tomorrow. Patino used to say this all the time, is, you know, besides blocking shots and doing stuff like that, is to get your hands up and block the vision of the passer. Don't worry so much about the person that could get the ball, but block the vision of the passer. And I hope it's not the case, but I think that Liam Cohen is going to have to roll him out even some more tomorrow, you know, to get him away from those guys if he can, just so he can see. And then it's incumbent upon those receivers, upon Barry Brown and Dane Key and all those guys. I mean, when the ball gets to you, you got to catch it. You've just got to catch it.
Way too many drops for a unit.
I did not realize until Cohen said it that they lead the country in drops. Now, it's a twofold thing. Receivers, first and foremost, ball hits you in the hands, you got to catch it. But there are people at the NFL and way smarter than me that you hear talk about catching a catchable ball.
Sure, right.
I don't know that Leary's thrown a lot of catchable balls. I mean, sometimes he's just like the dude out there at the county fair who's trying to knock those things down. Or the jugs gun.
Yeah, that's right. I was a king on that.
And I mean, maybe he feels like he has to do that to fit it into the slot.
That's great.
But you can fit it into the slot, but the dude's got to catch it too. So I've heard there was obviously more emphasis on that this week at practice. That it was better, except for the Tuesday practice, and then Mark Stoops had to address some things. But this is clearly a great opportunity, and at the same time, their most difficult test.
Speaking of picking your speed at the county fair, how often did you do that?
With the judge gun?
Yeah,
never. No.
Come on. You could win the doll. You could win the ice cream cup helmet.
No.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I could knock stuff over. You know, as an old catcher, I could bring it behind my ear and have some accuracy, but not a lot of speed.
We're saying pop time was there, but velocity wasn't.
That's exactly right. That's exactly.
Throwing a lot of change-ups to second.
Yes, sir.
So it's the Cats and the Georgia Bulldogs Saturday at 7. Tomorrow night, ESPN. And as we've mentioned, it's been a long time, for 14 years now, since Kentucky has played in Georgia and come away a victor. Rich Brooks was the guy who won down there. Kentucky over the last, I heard this on SVP, I think Kentucky's averaged the last 4 years against Georgia just 7 points. Last year lost 16-6 in the ice.
Right. But I would also say that, I mean, Georgia hadn't gotten a ton of points. I don't have those numbers in front of me. I think Kentucky the last 3-4 years has played Georgia as well as anybody's played Georgia.
Closer than just about anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And last year, thankfully, in Athens, tomorrow will not be like it was last November in Lexington. That was the most miserable I have been. And what made it even worse, the first half, if you remember, I bet there were 3 passes maybe. Right. They kept running the ball. The TV guys could not take a TV timeout.
And then once they got
and
them,
then when they did, it was a 3-minute break, a punt, 3-minute break, change of possession. No, we need one now. I mean, it dragged and dragged and dragged.
And the wind just kept going.
Yeah, and it just got a little bit colder. High school football tonight is week number 8 of the regular season.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, I can, because it always happens.
We are already into the playoffs for soccer here in the state.
That's right. That's right.
And the state soccer championships, I believe, are 2 weeks from this weekend.
Yeah.
The state championships. That means the season will be over.
I have never played 1 second of soccer.
Right.
I am always in awe of the dexterity of soccer players, because, as I used to tell people, I ran in 90-foot increments.
Right.
These guys run in 9-mile increments throughout a game.
I think this does bear one question, though, since you brought it up.
Yeah.
Why did you not play in the second fall season with the WKYT kickball team?
I just
stumbled upon the fact that they were playing in a second season this past week or so.
Well,
and
first
I saw a picture.
Well, secondly, they were playing on the turf. I'm more of a grass guy. No,
I figured it was probably some sort of contract thing, is what I thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to have to start throwing out, that bad wheel, got a soup bone working. Hammy, are you in the war? No, got him out. And, it's just one of those things. It was,
I got you.
Just couldn't do it. There are times when you have to know your limits. You've got to know when to call it a career.
Clint Eastwood, man's got to know his limitations.
That's right. See, you got to know when you got to call it a career. And we're going to call it a show here right now. But Dave Baker,
reports coming up from Keeneland later tonight and all throughout the weekend on
Lee
Fall
K.
Stars
Howard's
weekend.
out there. He's out there for Keeneland today.
Right.
We'll have that at 5:50, and then high school football later tonight.
Yes, and so tomorrow night, final regular season home game for the Lexington Sporting Club. They've got some big news coming up here in the next week or so. But we will take you now to Football Friday and see you next week for another All Blue preview. Welcome back into Facebook Friday as we get you set for the home finale for Lexington Sporting Club. It'll be tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at Georgetown College's Toyota Stadium. The tailgate begins at 5, gates open at 5:30, first touch at 7. You can get tickets at lexsporting.com/tickets. Josh Head is here with us, fresh out of Owensboro, Kentucky. What's it been like for you? You've been at the Academy with Cincinnati FC. What's it been like for you here with this expansion USL League One team?
Honestly, it's been a very great environment. I was honestly shocked. The people are fantastic. It's a great, friendly group. They welcome you with open arms. I've never felt any sort of animosity or anything from anyone. And we get to work, from as soon as training starts till it ends. We're all about work. We're focused, and
Sure.
we want to get the job done.
From other levels that you played at to this level, what was your biggest adjustment? Were you surprised at how good the level of play was, how good the guys are?
A little bit, yeah. I would say more speed of play than anything.
Okay.
It's just guys knowing what they're going to do with the ball before they get it, and that's really it. At some levels they don't. And that's honestly the biggest difference for me.
Sure. So you're one of those guys, obviously, from being here in Owensboro. I think you're the third guy from the state to be here on the squad. So I guess my question is as the organization builds a team, builds a program, you obviously want to have the best players, but you also want to have some guys that you're connected with as well. And that's got to be a good feeling for you.
Yeah.
People recognize
Absolutely.
you're from this state.
Absolutely. No, it's a great feeling. This is honestly the best place for me to be at right now. It's closest to home, and it's a great environment, and just all around, I couldn't ask for anything better.
Sure.
So
you guys went through that change of tactics a few weeks ago. It worked. Then you had the coaching changeover and everything. But what's everybody's mindset as you head into this last home game?
Everybody's mindset is just to get the win. We don't want to let the fans down, and we don't want to let ourselves down. It's all about how you end.
Right.
And we just want to end strong and make sure that all this hard work wasn't for, nothing.
Great. One final thing for you. Were you surprised? You've been in a lot of places where, soccer's got a rich, deep history, and a lot of people, support. Have you been surprised at how outstanding the support has been here for this?
Oh, it's been brilliant, because I've been in the stands watching for a while now, for months, and, every fan is involved. involved, and you can always hear them, either complain about a call or whenever somebody scores. I mean, it gets very loud. So it's honestly a great environment, and the kids playing around. It's awesome.
And you'll be back next year, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Josh, best of luck to you. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
We appreciate it. Again, tomorrow night, the regular season home finale. Gates open. Tailgate begins at 5. Gates open at 5:30. First touch at 7. You can get your tickets at lexsporting.com/tickets. And we'll see you next time on Football Friday.